Okay, ready? Vanessa, let me know when we're live. We are live. I can see it. Perfect. Okay. We'll go ahead and start the recording and we'll let everybody into the room. And make Stephen co-host. There we go. All right, Stephen, the floor is yours.
Hello, and welcome to the what's the date today? April 21st work session of the Oregon Country Fair Board regarding the board's discussion on the OCF draft equity and inclusion vision statement. And do we still have people coming in?
Nope, everybody's in right now, but they'll come in. We got a few more. 7 just popped in. So
Okay. Let's give them a minute if they're all, because they were all here and waiting.
Yep. We got one person now they're in. Well, now another person just bounced in. So I will let
Mostly the
them in
people who were
as
sitting there
I'm
waiting to
keeping
get
my
in.
eye on the meeting room, on the waiting room. So you can
Okay.
proceed and I will let
Yep.
people in as they come in.
So welcome to the April 21st work session for the Oregon Country Fair Board. This is a discussion on OCF draft equity and inclusion vision statement. And at the moment, our draft rules for this meeting are going to be 3-minute talking turns, and everybody's on the same page, so everybody can speak more than once. We're going to focus on trying to spread the input around. And we're going to start with who can give us some background and discussion about this statement before we start the discussion.
I will.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah. So earlier last year, the board started working with Cliff Jones, doing some trainings, and really as a part of those trainings, talking about how the board wanted to take leadership of, and start working together on some things. And what came out of that, one of the things that came out of that was we wanted to work on a vision statement together to see if we could all work together on something. And so we started working on that with Cliff Jones, who was our consultant and is our consultant right now on it. The board discussed this vision statement as a whole, and then selected a small group of board members to further work on it with Cliff Jones. And in that work with Cliff, uh, one of the things is we wanted to get feedback from the whole membership, anybody who wanted to give feedback on it, so that the product of the vision statement was one from the organization, as many voices of the organization as possible. And so we worked with him a few times, and what the draft is that you have tonight is the one that was crafted from the board feedback to this point. The board will have more feedback after all of this, but to this point was the board feedback along with what he helped us out with. And so tonight is an opportunity for the membership as a whole and everyone to have some input. Um, and then after this, we will provide a email in this meeting as well for folks to give further feedback after this meeting. Um, at some point, we will announce that that feedback is closed, and the board will, with Cliff Jones, will try to go through all of that feedback and create a vision statement that works with all of that feedback um, and with to us. So. This is what we're doing. This is kind of like the first step in letting folks have their voices be heard. There is no wrong answer. Um, I just want to put that out front. One of the things we worked on with Cliff Jones is that making sure everybody knows that, like, give us your feedback. however raw it is. Give us your feedback. There's no wrong answer. I would like us to focus on future, um, but come with whatever you have, and that's all I would say.
Thank you very much, AJ. I do want to say, because this is a work session, there can be a little more asking of a question of someone else. We'll see if 3 minutes is too constraining, but I ask people to get to the point. And if you want to ask a question of someone, asking a question of a board member or something, uh, ask your question up front when your term comes. And then if you're answering a question, please try and be concise so that we can keep that question and answer within that same turn, so that everybody's turn lasts the same amount of time, so somebody who's third or fourth down on the stack doesn't get waiting long times for long answers to short questions. So if we'll start off with who would like to say something, raise your hand in chat. And Grumpy.
Hi there, you all. So I guess if it's a vision statement, it actually looks more like a DEI statement. So I guess I would hope it would focus, at least what was written, would focus on a vision more than just DEI. I'm all for DEI, and it can be a DEI policy, but that's what it looked like. And frankly, the wording is just, to me, very weird. Hopefully you'll come up with a wording that's not so weird, and it looks like it came out of a book someplace, and it also looks like it maybe came out of a prayer. It sounds like it came from a deity up in the sky someplace. The wording just seems too formalized and again from a book someplace. And the wording to me just sounds weird. I'm all for a vision. I'm all for a DEI policy. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different. Someone that I know, it said it sounded like a psalm or a prayer. And that's not what we want as a vision or anything else like that. And then I had, you needed to add a word to one of the paragraphs, and I'll just send that to you if you are going to use this wording. And it was in the second paragraph. You needed to add the word will after OCF, if you can see what was written. Thank you.
Thank you. And Hull.
Hang on. Hi. Good evening. Thanks for having this session. As a member of the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Work Group, I've been thinking about these topics a lot lately. I think Arna sent you a revised version of your statement that our group developed together. Tonight, I'd like to share some of my own big picture thoughts. The first thing I'd like to urge is that you don't rush to completion on this. If this is to be a statement of the vision of the fair and its members, not just the board, please work to make it something that lots of folks help create, not something imposed from on high. I wrote this before AJ talked. Another reason we should take our time on this is that equity is a seemingly simple concept whose application isn't so simple. We all get the basic idea. The fence, folks of different heights, equity is adjusting the height of the stool so that everyone sees over the fence. Well, what does that mean when we apply it to the fair? There are different ways to evaluate equity. One is certainly representation, which I'll mention in the statement. The issue with representation is that we have many dimensions of difference. Trying to evaluate our population by its representation, by how many of each group, makes our differences be the important thing, rather than the across-the-board acceptance that renders those differences irrelevant beside our connection as fair family. When we talk about successful inclusion in the fair family, equity is a lot more than a wristband and a camping spot. It has to do with participation in the organization, having one's voice heard, and it has to do with being able to rise up the organizational structure and become part of leadership. The other big picture thought is that we should not ascribe the problems of the external world to the fair. From your discussion section, Inclusion requires the intention to recognize where individuals have been excluded systemically and historically, and identify opportunities that provide acceptance and welcoming where exclusivity was tolerated. Individuals have never been excluded systemically and historically from the Oregon Country Fair. Exclusivity was never tolerated. I feel similarly about the term marginalized. When we utilize that term, we bring those divisions from the unfair world in here. The sentence, "We acknowledge our biases so that we may more effectively engage and include marginalized communities," implies that it is the biases of the fair family that have caused issues with engaging and including marginalized communities. I've seen no evidence of that, and I think this statement would be stronger without that blanket statement of blame. Lastly, I'd like to speak for better collaboration with the EDIB work group. It was a little surprising to learn that y'all were creating this statement focused on the very words you'd asked us to define. We've spent a few months discussing these concepts, and our ideas might be helpful. We spent a good bit of time working together on the revision Arna sent you, and we would welcome the opportunity to discuss it further. We look forward to working together going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Hall. Anyone else like to speak? Raise your hand in chat. I have no one on the stack at the moment. Heather.
I'm excited to hear that there's a revision, and I'm wondering if there's any way that we can see that. So that would be pretty awesome. And there's probably time for us to read it because it's pretty short. I also want to say that I definitely urge you not to go with biases. I don't think that's needed here. It's basically too triggering, I think, and even more so what Hall was saying about bringing in outside stuff that I think all of us are already working really hard to not have and to deal with. So, in fact, I think that the statement is great right up through the sentence before the sentence with biases in it. And beyond there, I don't think we need any of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Who is that? Can I get your name?
My name's Amber Coates. I'm a OCF member.
Okay.
I have a question because I think my feedback has to do, would be further along the lines of where you are now in the process. So I'm curious to know how much this conversation is going to be talked about so I can interject what I need to, which is accessibility. I like the statement. I'm just like, statements are great, but they're also, how do you put them into practical use? And through my process of bringing something to someone's attention, I find that there's a request form, support form listed that I would like more to be more user-friendly. So it's one thing to have like this policy. It's another thing to like, okay, I have an issue that I want to bring attention to someone. And so it could be more tangible. Am I making sense?
Well, I can't speak for everyone. I think you could be, if you want to try and focus on what is it you're asking with regard to whether or not we adopt this statement. We certainly are interested in what other problems need to be solved, but at this meeting, we're just talking about whether this is a good vision or not, this statement. So can you relate what you're saying to that?
What I understand of the statement, I think it's a great statement, but it's a statement that you can make a statement, but how do you apply that statement? It's actually, I guess, my point.
And I don't know. We'll see if people may address that. I'm not sure we'll get to that in this meeting, but certainly
Okay.
if the statement's adopted, that's a question to be asked, right?
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And, chime in again. Did you want to say something, John? I don't have any other hands.
Well, I just wanted to, Amber and I have talked about, I think, what she's talking about. So and she asked, and I think that the relationship of this statement to accessibility, and specifically accessibility of the fair care information, is just an example of how do these statements go through our systems and whatnot that we have there. Is that kind of getting a little bit at what you were going for, Amber, there, as to how do we take this statement through? And that's one of the examples that you and I have talked about is that some of those forms could potentially be more accessible. So just how do we carry these as we take our time to make sure we get this vision statement or DEI statement right, that we make sure we think it through and carry it through in the various ways that we're providing opportunities to, let's say, break down some of these barriers or do some of these things that we're visioning.
Exactly. I think you're right on track, and I just want to be part of the process.
Yeah. So,
Thank you, Amber.
and so I'm glad to hear that. I appreciate it. I will say tonight's meeting is about the words of a vision statement as opposed to the long-term application of many of the things that are in it. So our failure to do that is a good topic for today. If we have words that we already don't follow, what's the value of a new statement and so forth? But, I don't know that we will solve specific problems about,
Oh, no,
accessibility.
I'm just glad to be part of the conversation, and I'm learning how to go through the process, and I tend to jump ahead. So thank
And
you for your
You're
patience.
totally fine. And thank you very much for being here. Let's make sure we time everybody today, 3 minutes for everybody. AJ.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, like I said in the beginning, this is a draft statement. And so uh, just, focus on that as well. It's not final at all by any means. And the board intends to take its time with this because this is important to us. And so um, we will hear from everyone.
Thank you, AJ. And Hannah.
Hello, everybody. I have a question, so I'll go with that first. I am curious what people felt the biases were. Reading that statement, that was my first question that came to mind, is clearly you guys have identified them. And if I were someone who was reading this that isn't currently a part of the FAIR family and someone who's reading it as a part of the FAIR family, I think when I see that word, I want to know what's been identified. Like if I'm outside of the FAIR family, I want to know what I'm getting into. What biases would I be dealing with?
So can somebody respond to that? Specifically, she's got 2.5 minutes if somebody wants to respond to it.
I
Go
I
ahead.
can as well. I think it is hard to be specific, but I can tell you one of I think biases across the board. I think as a person of color, I believe that even in the life that I live every day, that I have biases and things that I don't see, that things that I'm not aware of, that when they're brought to my attention, I try to make changes that I need to make. So it wasn't specific biases that we were addressing. We were addressing biases as a culture, as a family, biases that we may have based on our background, based on how we got into the fair, and looking at all of those and not trying to address every single one, but just acknowledging that we may not know what some things that we don't know. That's my point of view.
Thank you. Is
Okay.
there anyone else who worked on this that identified specific biases? Sandra, so we're doing in chat and elsewhere, so I've got a list going here. Okay, we're going to move on to the next person, which is John Pincus.
In regard to Amber's concern about application, perhaps as you finish crafting this statement, you can build in a logic into the statement that leads directly to action. And that'll take some wordsmithing, but I think there's a way to make the statement imply action, just not just ideals. Ideals are great, but as Amber said, they need to lead to action to be meaningful. I also kind of agreed with Grumpy on the wording. It kind of seems to change. It does seem a little bit like textbook-like, and it also changes frame of reference kind of in the middle, going from broad ideals to a specific prescription. And all of that content is appropriate, but how it fits together, I think, matters in terms of the impact of the statement. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Trying to get people to raise hand in chat. My stat currently is Coyote, Sandra, Hillary, Paxton, Amber, and then myself. So, Coyote.
Thank you. If we're going to use the word bias in it, just be aware that bias is a neutral word. There are positive biases, and negative biases. So just as a standalone, it has to be that if you're going to just use bias and you want to infer that it's a negative bias, then you're inferring something. So just in the English language, bias is a neutral word. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Sandra.
Yeah, I know that we didn't even try to identify biases because that's so individual to each person. And everyone comes from different experiences, different paths, different, and so that's something that we each have to look into on our own and figure out what biases we bring and, and what we need to do, if any. Like Coyote said, some of them are positive biases and some of them aren't. So I don't know that we have to dig into the meaning of that for us to do the work that we need to do. And this is meant to be, when we were talking about it with Cliff Jones, who was the consultant that we worked with, who I think is just phenomenal. And he presented it as something that we have to continuously work on, that we may, not that we have to rewrite it every year, but that's an evolving statement. And that made a lot of sense to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And Hillary.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Cliff, part of what I got from him saying this is a draft and present it to a lot of people, talk about it with a lot of people, is that partly the process of us talking about it, both to focus on what the statement should be, but also to focus on what the underlying issues are and whether that's implying the action or whether it's just for us to get a better understanding. Because, each of us in our own place has a different view on what happens. So by sharing that with each other, I think it really helps. And, I just have taken notes. The wording is awkward for people, the language, the ordering, and, with the word bias, that if it is making questions, I think we do need to either define it or work around it or say it in a different way. I think that's a really good point, Hannah. If it's not clear what it means, let's make it clear. Because for me, what I think is important about some of the biases, hopefully we all understand biases in the wider world and how they're manifested in people. But how does our system build bias in, by, having crews that, are kind of siloed, and by how leadership is chosen, which is different in all sorts of different places, by people attracting people that they already know to come and be part of their booth or their crew. you know, to me, what's the systemic kind of bias that we're building in? What are the personal biases that we're bringing in? Those, you know, I think it's valuable for us to explore it and talk about it, figure out what they are. Thanks.
Thank you, Hillary. And Paxton.
I'm one of those that sat down and worked on the wording of this. So I want to give a little bit of context. We had a series of workshops with Cliff Jones, and which kind of culminated in a series of kind of statements from all of us. And then Cliff kind of whittled it down to what he felt was really important parts, and then got us together to rework on this statement. Now, I really, really respect Cliff Jones. I really like his work, but I have one big complaint, and that he's never been to the fair. And as a result, I view this document as a little bit more mainstream, reflecting what is going on in the rest of the world than what is going on in the fair. And that's why I really look forward to the EDIB task force and others working on this to kind of, we have to turn this into kind of a document that states what the fair is interested in or working on, or how it works. Anyway, that's where I see us at. This is a starting point for a discussion. The board did some work here, and now it's really, we need input from the membership and others to kind of figure out what kind of statement where we're going to end up with this statement. I really appreciate all the discussion on biases. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber.
Okay, I think I agree with Sandra and Hillary and Paxton. I think bias is in the eye of the beholder, and so it's up to the individual to tell that story and to explain their experience about the situation, rather than have someone. We can definitely give them suggestions on how to craft how to put their experience into words so it can be looked at objectively. But I think it's definitely, bias is a personal thing, and I don't know if you can define it.
Thank you very much, Amber. So I'm up. I'm speaking for myself as a member, not as the facilitator here. And I just want to say a few bullet points about this. It should take a very long time to do this, like any mission or vision statement. If you want broad, think about how many of just voters, let alone the entire Fair family, don't even know this meeting's taking place today, whether they had the opportunity to know about it or not. Also, any statement that you adopt is by definition of the membership something that every member has to comply with. So I believe that this entire thing is supposed to be about peace, love, harmony, and understanding. I think that we have thousands of people that have more in common than they have apart in wanting to have a welcoming and accepting community that everybody can participate in. And when I read the statement, I get a certain reaction because some of that language is language that has been used in prior discussions where other people said they knew what it meant and I had to agree with them or else. And so I think if you want commonality, if you want everyone to share this statement, things that are personal or personally interpreted are not things to be in it, because we want a common vision. So that speaks against using the word bias, and I think less is more. So I have to concur with, if you take the first two paragraphs and maybe the first sentence of the third paragraph, that's a complete thought. You can build your policies and things around those, but as a vision, that's concise and it's common. Everyone, I think, who comes to FAIR can share that without running into conflict with some of the rest of the language. And I think we do all want everyone to be able to thrive and grow and participate. And so that's all I have to say on that. Next person is Hannah.
Hello again. Just some input on the word integrated. I am assuming I understand the intention there. I recommend the term inclusive or something else just because it feels a little odd in the statement. Just my personal opinion there. Little piece of input.
Well, thank you very much. John Alexander.
Yeah, hey, I like that. Sometimes, I think brevity is great, but definitions are also good when we're using big words. On the bias piece, I think that the concept of reflecting on one's biases and how they might be a barrier is a process. So I think that that's something that could be wordsmithed if bias is still something that remains in the statement. It's as much of a wordsmithing thing as it is anything else, which I don't think we're going to get into. My question when I was reading this and thinking about tonight is what's missing, what's there that might not be there, or what's there that might be built on. In my reading of it, one of the questions is it talks about aspects of race and other measures of diversity in that. I do not recall it mentioning anything about gender or identity or abledness or other things like that. So being careful to have a laundry list of the type of diversities that we're talking about in a diversity statement versus being broad in our thinking about that is another thing I think we need to think about in this statement. And I just appreciate everything that's being said here and the input we're getting. So those are just a couple things that I was thinking of is thinking about what's here and what's not here.
Thank you very much. I'll remind everyone, please raise your hand in chat if you'd like to speak. I have John Pincus.
Yeah, I wanted to address the concept that we don't have bias at the country fair. I have personally observed quite a few instances of bias at the country fair, mostly unconscious kind of bias toward what we normally think of as protected groups or marginalized groups. But also I've heard some direct bias expressed in people's expressions and so forth at the fair, including some fairly egregious ones. So let's not be kind of Pollyannish about it. There is bias out there in the fair, and we shouldn't be pretending that there isn't. How we address it in terms of getting people to deal with those problems in themselves, as opposed to different methods of application for that is going to be the conundrum, and that'll be a long process to figure out. Thanks.
Thank you, John. I have no one on the stack at the moment. Anyone like to speak, please raise your hand in chat. Looking for more input, raise your hand in chat. This is a session for everyone to speak up. So if you have any thoughts at all, please share them. AJ.
Yes, I was wondering if Kirsten, I don't have it off the top of my head, can give that email address for everyone. So if you have further thoughts on this or that you want to share, that you can please send them. Anybody can send their thoughts or feedback to this email address that the board will receive and will be a part of our ongoing conversation around this statement.
Yes, AJ, thank you. I just put it in the chat. It is vision statement at OregonCountryFair.org, and all comments sent there will be reviewed and analyzed and by the board with Cliff Jones. to help revise the statement. So again, vision statement at OregonCountryFair.org. And if you've sent an email to the board recently about this topic, I encourage you to send that comment to this new address so that they can keep it separate and get all of the comments in one place. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Jeffrey.
Yeah, maybe that just took care of it, but to the point made earlier, I think it'd be really good to make sure that this conversation, especially from the membership, gets to the committee that will be working on this in the future. And it sounds like we just talked about that. So that's all.
Thank you very much. Coyote.
Yeah, actually, Kirsten just answered my question because some of us have mailed stuff previous to the board about this. And so Kirsten, what you're suggesting is that we send it over to this place instead to make sure it gets to the right place, right?
Yes, the board's already received it, but this new address is designed to collect all of this in one place. And so, yes, if you've sent something to the board already about this statement, please resend it to this new email address so we get it all in one place. Thank you.
Thumbs up icon thingy.
Thank you. Paxton.
One of the things that just flashed on me that I wrote down in my notes here is what can we do to facilitate this discussion at the fair? I mean, we've got fair time. That's when we get everybody together. Is there something that we could do that would help this discussion? I'm just kind of brainstorming. So fair time's very, very busy for all of us. I've tried holding committee meetings at fair and it doesn't work. But, you know, discussions often engender all around the fair. And so this is something that, you know, could be a discussion point somehow. I don't know. I'm brainstorming. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather.
So along the lines of everything that's been said, starting with Kirsten, I guess my question is, what is the plan from here? So I understand there's an email to which things will be sent. There's been talk about we're not wordsmithing now. So what is the timeline on this? When is the wordsmithing going to happen? Who gets to be involved in the wordsmithing? What is the plan?
AJ, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So there's not a timeline. And right now we don't have a specific timeline. This project is the board's project that we're going to be, and the board will eventually, sometime down the road, finalize this statement. And we will hear from as many people as we can. Like I said, we'll continue to work with Cliff Jones on this. So at some point, we'll have enough data that will go and work with him on it. And then we will probably decide from there other ways we can get more input until we find until we come to an end of this. But there's no time frame right now. This is the beginning stages, and so that's all I can share with you right now. It's the wordsmithing is going to happen between the feedback that we get from everybody and our work with Cliff Jones.
Thank you, AJ. Did you want to follow through with what you had, or do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear. What I put my hand up for is I just wanted to be clear that this statement is coming from the membership and from all of you, but it is the board's work right now that we're working on. It is not going to be a specific committee. We'll get feedback from various different committees and folks. We will work with the EDIB group as well. But this work in this statement, however it ends up, will eventually be a product of the board who represents the organization.
Thank you. And John Alexander.
Yeah, thanks for that clarity. I've got a little bit of question around that. One, when the concept of it being a vision, somebody else brought this up. I think it was a really good point. whether we answer these questions or not tonight. Is this a DEIJ vision or an EDIP vision, or is this the vision, a vision for the fair? And then I think as with regards to the framing of this being, a vision is different than a focus vision, I think. And then, and this certainly has a DEIJ focus. And I think that this as the board's project, and this being our work and us working with the fair to come up with something. I really like Paxton's idea, whether it be during when we have the round table for or the round circle or whatever we call it for the feedback after the fair, or whether we do it week of fair, and some opportunities to do some circles to sit around and talk about this if board members are available. I think that anything like that is a great idea. I guess I think one thing for us to think about this, if this is a board project, is we need to be very clear as to, at the end of the day, what is this statement then? What is the product? Is this the board's statement for the fair, or is it a board project to develop a statement for the fair? And those are very different things. And those are some things that I think we're going to want to think about too, based on the way this project is being framed. But great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Sandra.
I think this is going to be, I think the timeline on this is longer. I don't think we're even going to meet with Cliff again until after the fair. I think it was like August or September. So there's a lot of time to get feedback and for people to think about it and talk about it and send in, whatever feedback they have. And, I think we'll be coming to the, I think we will be working on this together, for, a few months. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm up and I'm speaking as a member, not as a facilitator. And I just wanted to say, particularly focusing on what John Pincus said earlier, and also about what John Alexander just said. This is either for the board, like the board's principle, or it's for the entire membership for the organization. And by taking member input and stuff here, I think the intention is to be a statement for the entire organization. And so it's not Pollyanna. It's not, to say we know bad things happen at the fair. There've been some really bad things that have happened at fair, but by and large, our culture and our population shares good and common values, and that's what we're trying to promote in the world and trying to address, the bad things that happen. So not everyone agrees on how to go about that, or what the causes are, or what the solutions are, or what each individual is, or whether we all have biases, or whether someone's examined their biases and someone hasn't. And so that's why, I will just reiterate, less is more, common vision, broad statement that everyone can embrace is going to make it something that can mean something to everybody, as opposed to something that people either ignore or chafe at. And so next person is Coyote.
Yes, just a broad question. Is there a GoFundMe donation button to get Cliff Jones a ticket to the fair? Does anybody know? Are we doing a fundraiser to get him down to the fair?
He
I'm going to
has
speak to that
allergy.
real quick. He's got really bad allergies, and he did go in the 70s and hasn't been back since. He was in Eugene for the university, but he lives in Portland and says, and I've sent him tickets. Last year I sent him VIP tickets, and he just has got really bad allergies and has not been able to make it.
I think he has a better understanding of the fair than what Paxton's statement might have implied.
Okay. Kirsten.
Thanks. So I've been hearing a lot, is this DEI, is this DEIJ? The terminology is changed over time. The new nomenclature now is just equity and inclusion. They've dropped the word diversity. They've dropped the word justice. So just as soon as I say that, they'll come up with another iteration of what it means to be working in this field. So right now, it's equity and inclusion is kind of the umbrella in which the consultants work in. So I just wanted to clarify that yes, it falls under all of those things, but the new nomenclature now is equity and inclusion, according to our consultant Cliff. Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't have anyone on the stack right now. I'm looking for more feedback. Raise your hand in chat, please. Anyone? We'll give it a moment here. AJ?
Yeah, I just wanted, it's interesting because I'm usually a let's start something and finish something kind of person, and I'm always looking, okay, let's accomplish something, and I want to be real clear that one of the tasks that Cliff gave us um, in our last meeting with him was that that this is going to take some time, and so I want to remind folks that like there are a lot of us, and there are a lot of us with very strong opinions and different experiences at FAIR. And it's important for us to all remember when we're doing this work, um, remember that it would almost, in my mind right now, is impossible to come up with a statement that will be uh, fair wide accepted as their each person's own statement. We're trying to do our best to come up with a statement that is, in my opinion, I think um, covers as many people as possible. This is just me speaking as an individual. I want to say that as well. Is that and that's going to take time. And so I'm looking at that as what are statements made tonight. You may feel differently after speaking to some people after tonight, and you have a different opinion that you email in 3 weeks from now or something like that. So I just ask everyone to just have an open mind. Continue. I am grateful that you folks showed up tonight to have this discussion. I think we will try to continue to have these discussions. I think we have another open session sometime in the summer after fair that we may have another one of these conversations. But I really ask that everybody just keep an open mind. We all experience things differently, and we have now an avenue to get all of those thoughts and ways of thinking to one place. So a few people can work on deciphering all of that and seeing if we can come up with one solid statement eventually.
Thank you, AJ. Amber, do you have chat? Can you see chat?
Yeah.
Just because I hope you'll keep coming to meetings, and if you do, we typically try and raise our hands in chat more on these things.
Oh, okay. I'm
So
sorry.
that's fine.
Oh.
Please go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I guess my thing about the statement is I view it as an invitation or opening the door, as AJ would say. It's more like, and yeah, say we are here to listen to your experiences and we invite you to share them. Something of that nature, rather than to define words. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, it's definitely want to thank everyone for coming and giving us your feedback. It's always awesome, and it's really great working with everybody and hearing all the different perspectives and everything. It's what we need. And so for me, when I think about this, I think about, when I first came to FAIR, and it's completely different than anything I'd ever experienced. And I know that what I did experience was definitely that welcoming and that feeling. And of everyone, doing what be yourself, right? Like I feel you get a lot of that. And so it's like, how do we capture that energy and how do we express that? I think about when Stephen was saying that it read like a psalm, and I thought that was really interesting, and how like with a statement, and a vision, I think about vision as creating kind of this dreamlike state, right? And so it is a question of I, you know, if we do go too broad, does that do a disservice to the fair itself and its uniqueness and all of its energy and all of its love and everything it involves? But also, if we go too far, that it becomes corporate, right? Like, and so I definitely see the tough balance, and I think everybody's feedback's been really helpful for that, for me too. And so, um, it's a big project, and I'm just glad we're taking our time with it as well. I'm glad we're doing this and hearing from folks. And please spread it around, tell everybody, send in your messages. It definitely will help. And I just look forward to making something that's beautiful for us. So hopefully.
Thank you. I have no one on the stack. We'll take a minute here. Anyone have more thoughts, please raise your hand in chat. That's what this session is for. Looks like we've lost some people as well. Last call for input. Is there any objection to closing the work session then? Looks like everyone's expressed themselves.
No.
No, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. The next board meeting is Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Any input on meeting evaluation? Kirsten?
I'm sorry, I was a little slow on the
Yeah,
draw,
that's all right.
but we're wrapping it up anyway. The only thing I wanted to say is that next steps is we will put this in the FFN and ask for feedback to a greater population through the FFN. And we'll probably run that for a couple of months over the summer. We see our readership of FFN go up around the event. So we will put this in there and do a call out for people to share their perspectives with the board. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this, you all.
Thank you. Any other meeting evaluation? Coyote?
Yeah, I just think it was great that you're doing this. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I think it's a great way to go about doing things. Thank you for doing it, taking the time to do it.
Thank you. Paxton?
I really appreciate board workshop discussions, so I'm glad to be seeing to try and get back into doing more of them. Thank you very much, all. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other meeting evaluation? Last call. Would you like a president's piece, AJ?
Yes, just real quick. Talk to your friends, talk to the people around you. Get everybody you can involved in this discussion. The more folks that we have involved in this discussion, the better outcome we're going to have. And thank you for being here tonight. I know it's hard to be here on a Monday night when we don't have an actual meeting. So thank you to the board members that showed up. Thank you to the membership that showed up. And you guys all have a sweet night.
Thank you very much. And with that, we shall adjourn.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. A
Thanks,
sweet